Hello everyone, and welcome to another video on my channel. In this one I'm going to show you the round 3 manufacturer guide, and we are at Deep Forest Raceway in Gr3 car machineries. Now, in this video I'm going to first of all talk about the race setup / the race settings, followed by my fastest qualifying lap, followed by the detailed lap of my fastest lap in time trial, and then I'm going to show you the a full race practice of the 20 laps of this track, and trying to talk about the race strats and my tips and tricks basically for this combo. I'm maybe talking about some cars, etc. But without further ado, let's get into the talking about the race settings and that. So it is 20 laps, like I had just mentioned. 16 cars as always, rolling start, and qualifying is 7 minutes. So I think that will mean that we get 3 or 4 flying laps, because the lap times we're looking for is for pole in like top split area will be a very, very low 26. So let's say 1 minute 30 average a lap, including out laps, etc. 1 minute 30 is your out lap, 3 minutes is your first flying lap, and then if you carry on doing that flying lap, it's 4:30. Back in the pits, come back out. Let's say you rejoin the track to start your out lap on the 5-minute marker. It gives you enough time to start the final flying lap. So you get 3 good flying lap attempts, in my opinion, for this. Anyway, times for tyre wear in both qualifying and the race. Times to fuel only in the race. I will say right now, at least in WRX, fuel is not a problem whatsoever. I had quite a bit left. I think I had about 30% left, as you'll see in my race run. Useful tyres, it's only the racing mediums. Since this weather does not have weather, don't need to worry about the inters or the wets. It's just the racing mediums we need. Like I said, we are in Group 3. And Deep Forest is a mid-speed BOP. Not 100% sure if I agree this truck should be mid-speed BOP or not, but either way, it is mid-speed BOP. And we are allowed to change the brake balance, nothing else. DR and SR is affected as always. Mechanical damage is on light, so if you get damage, it'll automatically repair after, I believe it's 30 seconds. Minimum number of pit stops is 1, so you do have to make a pit stop. Whether you have to tyre change or not, it's another question. Well, no, it's not another question. You don't have to change tyres, but whether it's better to change tyres or not is another question, is what I was supposed to say. Now, the track limit is on normal, and the shortcut penalty is on weak, so you can get away with cutting some parts of this track, but if you do, you get a small penalty, like you would normally. It's like normal track limits. All collision penalties off. Of cars, collision penalties on, obviously, so don't go ramming into people because you'll get a time penalty and damage on top of that. And pit lane line cutting penalty is also on, so be careful to not cross the pit entry line and the pit exit line. Honestly, on this track, it's very difficult to get a 3-second penalty from crossing the right lines. But basically, what I will just say about that is, if you're thinking about pitting, make the decision before you get to the pit entry, because you don't want to think about pitting as you get into the pit entry, because that could be when you cross the right line. So just always have in mind whether you're going to pit or not. So that is the race settings. As you can see, the practice time ranking. The top car, as you can see, is the Viper. The R8s are very good here. Z4, it's not a bad car. Huracan will be decent. The Beetle looks good. Yeah, basically, this is quite a decent BOP track. Other than the Dodge will be very good. The Suzuki will be very good. But outside those 2 cars, I reckon the BOP will be very good for this, because the handling cars will be able to do good in S1, or, well, not I wouldn't say good, but alright in S1, and pretty good in S2. They will just struggle at S3. Whereas the power cars will be good on S3, maybe a bit in the S1 as well, with their top end, potentially. But more S3. So it's quite a well-balanced track, other than a car or 2. I mean, as you can see on the leaderboard, I mean, you've got, probably good 10 different cars in the top 22. I mean, you've got the Master here, Huracan, Z4, Corvette, Merc, GTR, Ferrari 296, Merc, Porsche, Z4, Huracan R8, Beetle, Viper, and yeah, that's like 12, 13 different cars in the top 22. So it's not bad for shock. But anyway, as you can see in my lap, I've done a 26.3, a decent lap. I do think that's a 10th in it for me personally. So I think for max in the WRX, you'll probably see is for absolute max will probably be around the midpoint 1 area, which will be around his sort of area. But I think that's absolutely limit for WRX. I'm not the fastest WRX in time trial, but it's Giorgio Mangano, who's done a low 0.2. So I'm within a 10th of him. So my lap is good enough to share my lap guide with you guys. And talking of lap guide, I'm going to show you the fastest time trial lap I've just done now. Followed by the detailed lap of that afterwards. But before that, first of all, huge thanks for the support in the first 2 videos of the manufacturer guides, and thank you so much for supporting streams as well. Greatly appreciated. We have been flying. I want to thanks for 3k subs as well. Absolutely huge. And I would appreciate liking and subscribe as well. If you love these sort of videos and you want to see more from me. But like I said, let's get to my fastest lap now. Hello everyone, so hopefully you enjoyed the lap I've just shown you. Now I'm going to show you the rough references I was using to achieve the lap time I have just done, which was a very low 126.3. I think it was a 307 from memory. Somewhere along those lines. But anyway, what I will mention before starting the lap is with the first 2 guides I made, I was using the BLZ. You may have noticed, especially if you're not in the Subaru, that you probably wouldn't have been able to use some of my braking references, etc., just because the BLZ has insane downforce for a Gr3 car. In fact, it's the best downforce in Gr3, and it's not even close. And it also doesn't have good brakes on its own straight. So like the braking references would have been quite different compared to pretty much every other car in the manufacturer series. But with the WRX, you should be able to follow my braking references because the WRX has good acceleration, has good brakes, has okay handling. Not great, not terrible, just okay. But it doesn't have the best top speed. I think the braking references will be pretty good for you guys to follow, especially if you're in a car like a Lexus, that sort of car, because that car, it doesn't have quite the acceleration of the WRX, but it'll probably have quite similar top end speed, and it'll of course handle better as well. So that's what I'll say. And I'll say finally before I get started, some of these corners you want to be a bit careful on your steering inputs and your throttle application, because at least in the WRX on some corners, when I go 100% off throttle, I had to be extremely careful on my turning inputs, because if I put a bit too much steering in, I would have a lot of oversteer on exits, even though I was exiting in high gears in this car, just because of the high torque this car has in early revs. But anyway, let's get into the lap. So, first corner, quite an easy reference. I'll just go frame by frame until I see my ABS light going up on. There you go. I'm braking. I think I can get away with braking on this 100 marker pretty much. And I'd say in a handling car, you probably want to brake out around this 100 marker, especially if your car doesn't have good top speed. So I'd say 105 meters to 100 meters. That's where you really want to brake for this corner. I think I brake a tiny bit early personally, but anyway. So I'm going to be braking a straight line, and what you want is you want your left tire to basically stay on the inside curb. But more importantly, you don't want your left tire to go onto the grey part of the curb bit. Not curb, but the grey part of the track where it's not tarmac, it's got a different surface. You don't really want to be on that part because I felt, in fact, I don't feel, I know there's less grip on it, so you just don't have quite as much grip on it, so you're not quite able to carry a high minimum apex speed, and you also may have to slightly delay the throttle as well because you're more likely going to understeer ride. But anyway, the rough apex speed I was roughly going for in the WRX here was 57 to 58 miles per hour. You'll see what I mean with saying off this grey part. So yeah, try not getting left tires to touch this part of this track because you will start to understeer a bit. Try getting left wheels to basically stay on this curve the whole time. Plus it helps drag your car around a bit. Again, be careful on the steering on the exit here. The car will want to slide. Here, carry on turning left a bit, and as soon as you see this sign here, you want to start turning to the right, maybe like a car length after it. Turn to the right, carry on turning right. I brake quite late here. I probably brake at about this tree point here. And when I say brake, it's a very small brake. Any second now. There you go. Basically, when I get to a tree, I do a very small brake, and then I kind of coast it until my left wheel or my right wheels goes over this curve. Just to keep the car stable going over this curve. Now, I will say in the MR, especially if you're in a Huracan, Audi R8, etc., you may not be able to get your right wheels to go beyond this curve because of the weight distribution. Since the weight of those cars have a lot on the rear will want to step out when you're trying to go over this curb. Just you're going slightly over a bump, and plus you're using the grass, the rear will just not have the stability. So, in my opinion, if you're on a Huracan or Audi R8 at the very least, maybe NSX as well, maybe Citroen. I don't think the Citroen's as bad personally, but maybe even Citroen. I'd say the absolute max you want to do is have your right wheels on this red and white curb, and maybe a tiny bit of a green usher as well. But you do not want to touch the grass in this car, in those cars. But however, since I'm in a WRX, what you're going to be wanting to do is you want your right tires to actually go on the grass, and you want your left wheels to be on this red and white curb. You kind of want to cut it just so that you have a good angle coming up to this next corner, and I do think it's very slightly cambered as well, so I do think there's a bit more grip available doing that as well. The minimum apex speed for this corner here, I would say, is around 107 miles per hour in the WRX. So that's what I mean. You want your left wheels like this in the WRX. In an MR, you want your right wheels to be where my left wheels are, basically. Going to carry on. Then there's this tree here that comes up. I'm braking around that point. Obviously, it comes up so quickly. It's better to brake earlier than later. So I'm braking any second now. I know I am. As soon as I see my ABS light showing. Sorry guys for this sound. If it's annoying, there you go. I lift here. So like I said, I use this tree as my reference. It's the first tree trunk you'll really see. The big tree trunk. Or anyway, so I'm braking here. You can either just have your left wheels on this red and white curb, or you risk going over the rumble strips. In my opinion, on the controller, especially in an MR, I'd maybe not risk going over the rumble strips, just because on the controller at least, if you hit the bumps slightly wrong, or slightly at the wrong angle I should say, the car will stop steering and you'll basically have to take a very low minimum apex speed in the following corner, and also mess up the exit, so you'll lose probably 2 attempts to 2 attempts trying to get greedy basically. However, since it's TT, I went for it, and the minimum apex speed for this I believe was around 90 miles per hour. Right here, as soon as you see this curb here, as soon as you get to the end of this curb, maybe even halfway to this end of the curb and the end of this right bit part of this curbing here, I'm going to be braking. In fact, I'll fast go frame by frame until I'm braking. You see, I'm coasting at this moment, because if I was to go on a throttle, I'll just understeer a bit wide and I'll not have a good angle to attack this next corner. So that's why I'm coasting this part. Here you go. As you can see, I'm braking now. I'd say the end of this curve is the perfect braking reference to this corner, in my opinion. What you're going to want to do is, as soon as you're braking, you're going to be turning to the right. You want your right tires to be on this red and white curb, just to help drag on the corner, and 2, to minimize distance, of course. I think there's a bit more grip on this curb as well, personally. Minimum apex speed I was going for this corner was around 70 miles per hour in the WRX. And again, be a bit careful on your steering input and your throttle input here, because the car will slide out, as you are about to see right now. I will say, as long as your right wheels is touching this red and white curb, you won't get a track limit. It is very difficult to try, but you can get a track limit penalty by going too wide here. So just be mindful of that. But let's carry on. So here, this next corner, quite an easy braking reference for me. I'm using this end of this curb here as my next braking reference, maybe very slightly after it. So any second now, I'm going to be braking. Yeah, I'll go slightly faster, okay. There you go. So I'd say about a car length after the end of this curb, I'm braking. What you're going to want to do is you could either go a touch deep in and then kind of do it in like a V shape. Well, not a V shape, but you want to be close to it inside the whole time. So you can either just miss this white line with your inside wheels and then go a bit in at the end with your right tires going inside this white line, just to, you know, maximize your entry and maximize your exit speed. Or, and what I'm going to be showing you, I believe, is I'm going to be having my right wheels inside this white line the whole time. However, it's a bit risky, because if you were to go on throttle quite aggressively while your right tires is inside the right line, since it is technically off the track, you don't get dirty tires, but there's definitely less grip on it. So you need to be even more careful on the throttle and your steering input when you have some of your tires off the actual racetrack. So just keep mindful of that. I believe the minimum apex speed I was going for this corner was around 64 miles an hour in the WRX. I'd say as soon as the car starts to straighten up about now, yeah, as you can see, I go 100% throttle in the WRX, because this car has quite good handling when you put the throttle down, even though it doesn't have the best downforce, just because this car is in the low revs in third gear. That's probably why I can get away with going on the power quite early in this car compared to some other cars. But anyway, like I said, just be careful on throttle and steering input. As soon as you get off this white line, you should be able to put a bit more steering input in, and you shouldn't be sliding out too much. Here, I'll just say, as long as your right wheel isn't on the inside of this white line, you won't get a penalty, so just be careful of that. Also, again, since your left tire is technically off the track, just be a bit careful with your steering here. Don't put too much steering here, because the car will slide a bit. Here, and this was quite a bit experimental actually, because I usually had my right tyres not go over this red and white curb. However, what I found when I did this for a bit is it's actually better to go over this green Astro bit here, As long as your left tyres is on this red and white curb, then you won't get a penalty for this, which is perfect because it just means you get able to maximise the angle for this next corner. But anyway, talking for this next corner, I'm braking just before I get to this bollard here. I think you can brake as late as that bollard. However, I'd rather brake a touch early and make sure I hit the inside curb to help drive me around the corner than to risk braking a bit later for that extra 100th of a second and just understaying the ride. So I'd say it's better to brake just before the second green bollard here. In this corner, my rough apex speed I was going for here was 97 to 98 miles per hour in the WRX. Again, try and get your left tyre to go on this green astro bit here without touching the grass, because it helps drag you around the corner, and if anything, you can get on the throttle slightly earlier, since you've got more room to play with in the corner, since you're more on the left, obviously, so you've got more space, basically. Be careful from seam too wide. So just be a bit patient with the throttle. As soon as you feel like the grip is coming, don't pick up the throttle. May take you a few laps to get used to it and to find the right reference to pick up the throttle, but you'll get there with time. Anyway, this next corner, I think I'm braking, I just went past it, but I'm braking, I think, half a car length after I get to this bridge here, or this grey part of this bridge here. There you go, in fact I'm braking right now. Yeah, I'd say about a car length, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'd say half a car length after this part here. That's when I'm braking for this corner. My minimum apex speed for this next corner is 60 to 61 mile an hour, and I will say right now, at the very least with the WRX, maybe will be different in MR cars because they tend to have better traction. But in the WRX, I needed to turn late here because I felt if I turned early and picked up the throttle, one, since I'm carrying a bit less apex speed, since I'm taking a narrower line, since I won't be attacking the corner with as much entry angle, so I won't be able to carry so much speed. So basically what I'm trying to say is, in the WRX and probably in some other FR cars, if you turn early, and you either touch the gas or you just turn early in general, you will wheel spin and lose quite a bit of on time on the exit. So for me, it's better to have a late apex for this corner, maybe even better to not even touch the inside apex, just so that you have more of an exit angle, so you don't have to put as much doing on the exit, and you can still go 100% throttle without having wheel spin. The minimum apex speed I was going for this corner was 60 to 61 miles per hour. Be careful going over this red and white curb as well, because if your left tyre leaves this curb, you'll get a half a second penalty. I pretty much nailed it on this lap. That leads us to the straight, and what you may notice in WRX is you would think I would upshift 6th here, but I actually stayed in 5th here. Even though this car doesn't like to be revved out, this car likes a 100% shift, so basically as soon as it gets to the end of the bar, that's when you usually shift in WRX. However, I'm going to rev out 5th here, and I'll explain why. So just before the braking references, I did experiment with this. So at first lap, I shifted to 6th, and the second lap, I stayed in 5th. What I noticed is, yes, if I did upshift to 6th, I would gain about half a 100th to 100th on the straight onto the braking zone. However, since I'm in 5th and revving it out, I'm not carrying as much speed into the braking zone, so I felt I could brake later. So I'm probably just going to stay in 5th in the actual thing, unless I had slipstream, of course, in a race, then I'll upshift to 6th. In my opinion, it is better to stay in 5th. Whether Giorgio Mangano, Patrick, or Nave Tarney stayed in 5th or upshift to 6th, I don't know. But for me in the WRX, I preferred to stay in 5th. That takes us to the last corner. And I'm braking, so when these shadows start here of the tree, I believe this is. In fact, let me just go to race photos quickly so I can see. Yeah, there's a tree here. It'll be off that tree. There's a shadow here. I'm braking on this little this little gap of the shadow here. I brake on the end of that. I brake here. That's my braking reference for this last corner. Right here, as you can see, I've just started to lift now. So I'd say about half a car length in the WRX before the entry curb, just in case this shadow disappears in the race or in the qualifying session. It's half common for this curb, but if not, use this little gap in the shadow of the trees as your braking reference in the WRX at the very least. Probably Lexus and GTR as well. They're probably be good braking references. Anyway, I'm braking here. Initially, I'm going to be braking a straight line, but as soon as I downshift second, I think, or maybe halfway through second, you're going to see me turn left quite early because it is a little bit cambered. So if you turn late, you're just going to lose quite a bit of time on entry, and even with a good exit, you won't make up enough time. I did mess up this corner a bit on my lap. I lost, I believe, half a tenth in the last corner here, maybe even slightly more than half a tenth, because I do miss the inside curve slightly here. But let's play it now. So yeah, as soon as I downshift second, you start to see me turning to the left. You want your left tire just to touch this red and white curb if possible. You definitely don't want to touch this rumble strip, and even if you do miss the red and white curb a bit, it's okay, as long as you don't go too deep and you do not have to compromise your minimum apex speed. Talking minimum apex speed, I was aiming to be 38 to 39 mile an hour in this WRX. However, I did go a bit deep in, and I was very low 38, and I even hit 37 on my lap, so I definitely lost half a tenth here. And it definitely compromised my exit as well, because I was a touch wider than what I wanted. Like I said, you want your left wheel to be on this red and white curb if possible. WRX, be careful on the throttle when you go 100% throttle, so don't be too eager on the power. Also, just be careful on the steering, especially when you go over this red and white curb, because you're off the track again. So just be careful with your steering, just so that you don't have too much wheel spin and lose too much time on exit. And that's all I've gone around this deep forest track. And as you'll see, this lap is a 126.307. A decent lap. I do think there's a tenth, maybe slightly more than a tenth in it though, personally for me. So that I think a top driver of WRX will get a mid one or even a low one. So there you go, 126.307. So I'm going to very quickly go over this lap just because there's not much to do in this guide since it's a pretty straightforward race. So I'm going to just quickly go over this. There, first corner, I'm braking between 100 to 105 meters in this corner. You want to hook the inside, don't touch this grey part with your left wheels. Your minimum speed in this car, 57 to 58 mile an hour. Be careful when you're steering it as you go on the turn throttle here. Carry on turning left until you see this red sign, turn to the right half car after it, 106.7 mile an hour at apex speed. Here, 90ish mile an hour, end of the curve, down to 70 mile an hour, full throttle exit, be careful steering, end of curve again here. Carry on coasting, be careful on throttle, 64 mile an hour area for minimum apex speed. Go over this bollard area. Minimum apex speed 98 mile an hour. Here, make a touch after this grey part of the bridge starts. Minimum apex speed around 60 mile an hour. Use all the exit curb without going over the red and white curb. So this last corner, what you're looking for is you're going to be braking just before you see the entry curb, and there's a little gap in the shadow of the trees. You're going to be braking at the right part of the shadow, and there's a gap in the trees. Try hit the inside curb, it doesn't matter if you don't, as long as you don't go too deep. Minimum apex speed around 38 mile an hour in the WRX, 38 to 39 mile an hour. Be careful with the throttle as you exit, especially when you have the left wheel, go ahead the left right curves, if you're off the track. You don't want to put too much steering in, just so that you don't have wheel spin and lose time on the exit. So that is a lap guide of Deep Forest. Now I'm going to show you a race run of what I did earlier. Cheers guys, and I'll see you with commentary in the background then. Cheers guys. Right guys, so here is a race run that I did. So I set this lobby up basically the same as it would be in a race. So I put tower day on as afternoon, and of course I also put times 4 tire wear and times 2 fuel, because that is what the race settings are for this race, at least in the GT1 league. I don't know what it's like for GT2 and GT3 league out there, but in the GT1 league it's times 2 fuel and times 4 tyre wear on the race medium tyres. Times 4 tyres on the race mediums isn't a lot, however over the course of 20 laps it would be a lot, so that's why I made the decision to tyre change here. I do reckon though that in a car like a Citroen, a no tyre change might be a viable strat potentially, just because that car has both good rears and good front tyre wear. It's one of the only cars that has that ability to do it. Maybe the Master as well. That car's also very good on tyres. But other than those 2 cars, I would probably recommend to change your tyres, especially if you can't tyre save in general. So my aim here was just to try and get a consistent running, try not get penalties or anything, since I think a penalty here can be very detrimental to your race, because even though it's real slipstream, not custom slipstream, it's still probably faster to be in someone's slipstream, even with this slight dirty air, compared to you know, running your own race without slipstream, etc. So you may see some cars bunched up, maybe even tyre saving behind a faster car, just to, you know, use their slipstream and, you know, try and maybe even overcut and have better tyres for the end of the race to have the best opportunity to go for moves on the last lap, etc. So anyway, let me just quickly talk about what my thoughts are on this race and what I think is a viable strategy. So, like I mentioned for last time, it's times 4 tyre and times 2 fuel. At least in WRX, I'd have to worry about fuel. As you can see, I'm halfway through lap 2, and it does say I've got over 26 laps of fuel remaining, which is more than 20 laps, of course. And I've used only 6% of fuel halfway through lap 2. Basically, as long as you're not using 5% of fuel a lap, then you're good. What you may have noticed as well is I'm struggling a bit to get up to speed here, just because the braking references I was using before wasn't there, with the shadows, etc. for a lot of people especially. And what I do also think, what I think about this race, the lobby setup I have, is I'll put it on afternoon. I'm not 100% sure what time of day they use in the time trial session. However, to me, I know a little bit of wind will have an impact, of course, on straight line speed, but I was across the start finishing line, for example, I was going 3 miles per hour slower than what I was in TT. So that tells me that I think the lobby I was in does have higher temps than the TT in the actual thing. In my lobby, the amount of degrees Celsius I had was 19.1 degrees Celsius. So I reckon in the actual thing it'll probably be somewhere around the 60 degrees Celsius, because a 2.4 meters per second wind speed at 11 o'clock shouldn't give you 3 miles per hour extra speed going across the start finishing line. Yes, it'll help you initially when going down here hill and past the pit entry. However, once you get to the actual straight with the start finishing line on it, the wind doesn't help you out much at that point. So I can understand up to 2 miles per hour, but since I was 3 miles per hour off what I was doing in TT, I was going past the start finishing line 160, here high 157, so I'd say about 2.5 slower than what I was doing in TT. So I do think I have slightly too high temps in this lobby. So I had it on as afternoon. I'd say for practice I would maybe recommend evening for this. However, in the evening, I'll put on the evening at first. I think I had it at around 18 degrees Celsius. So that's 1 degree Celsius cooler. It was either 18.1 again or 18.7. I couldn't exactly remember, unfortunately. But either way, it'll probably be closer degrees to the actual thing. And I was actually going to do this in the evening. However, when I tried the evening for the first lap or two, there was just so many shadows that it was just throwing me off with braking references and that. So I decided just to put it on afternoon, and even though it's going to be slightly slower, I'd rather have good consistent braking references in that, because with the amount of shadows I had in the evening, it just distracted me basically. So I'd rather go slightly slower and just go for a consistent one, because I can always adjust to the actual session. I do think that as you'll see with my fastest laps, I do think in the actual thing I will be going around 2 to 3 tenths faster than what you'll be seeing in this video here. One more thing I will note is I did this race run So I did a bit of TT, however I got kind of stuck at a wall. I got down to like a mid 4 and I just couldn't improve on it even though I could find time in it, so I decided just to do this race run in between, just to, you know, have a break from TT and, you know, just get my try and get consistent, and hopefully with the consistency from this it'll help me get better in the TT, which evidently happened because I did the 0.307 about 10 minutes after this race run, so I think this was the right way of doing it. Anyway, now let's actually talk about the strat for this race. So it is 20 laps here, so obviously 20 divided by 2 is 10, so the ultimate strat is to pit lap 10 here. However, that's the optimum strat. If you're going to do a no tyre change, then there's a number of things you can do, especially if I think that the actual lobby will be lower temps than this, because obviously the higher the temps, the more tyre wear you're going to have, because your tyres more likely going to overheat, and since it's having to push around the corners in hotter conditions, yeah, like I said, it's just going to heat up the tyres quicker and basically just wear them out more, basically. So I do think a nose stop is viable, and the reason I think that is because I believe, I didn't actually test it in the time trial lobby, because of course if you can change the pit stop timings, etc. But usually at Deep Forest, as you'll see here, the pit stop for changing tyres, you were in the pit stop, the actual pit stop, for 6.2 seconds. Without a tyre change, it usually takes about 2 seconds. So you'll be saving over 4 seconds if you decide not to tyre change. And in 10 laps, you basically have to get half a second a lap on fresh tyres to the people that didn't change tyres, which might be doable, I'm not sure, because you will be on warm tyres at the end if you did a no tyre swap. However, you won't have to get used to the cold tyres coming out on fresh tyres when you leave the pits, for one, and just getting the extra bit from, you know, you'll be used to how you're driving at the end of the stint with the tyre wear, and you obviously have to adjust for new tyres very quickly, which is easier said than done, I would say, especially in WRX, because what you'll notice on my outlap is I had quite a bit of oversteer with the cold tyres, so you can definitely lose a bit of time on the outlap. So with that makes me believe that even pitting lap 11 can work here, because in my opinion, yes, you will lose probably a couple temps on your in-lap. However, with the cold tyres, I don't think the undercut will be that powerful, to be honest. Since you don't have much tyre wear, I think the absolute maximum tyre wear you'll see from people will be around the 40% tyre wear on your front line. As you may have noticed, my front right tyre is the one that's wearing the most, because it is it's an anti-clockwise circuit, so you're going to be turning a lot more left to get back to the start of the track than right. And plus, the faster corners on this track do tend to be left-handers, so again that's going to be the one that hurts your front right tyre more, since that's the one that's having to do more of the steering to get around the actual corner, not your inside tyres. But like I said, I think that a viable strat is obviously the ultimate strat, I should say, is obviously pitting lap 10, and that's where I think your tyre change is enough. If you're not going to do a tyre change, in, like if you're in the Citroen or maybe the Master, and you can tyre save, then I'd potentially look at not tyre changing. And there's two reasons for that for me. One, you get away from people, so you're not having to worry about defending, or you know, you're not having to worry about people missing their braking inputs and that. So I think that's one of the reasons why I think you may see a couple people doing no tyre change, especially if the pit loss time is the same as it is in lobbies. Sorry, I forgot to test it in TT. I kind of wish I did, but I had thought about doing it when I was doing TT after this race stint. However, I just completely forgot to do it because I was just doing good lap times, but I didn't want to, you know, go in the pits on one of my laps that I was happy with, if you know what I mean. But another reason I think a no tyre change is good here is because you won't have to get used to the fresh cold tyres when leaving the pits. So you'll be, when you pit in and you don't change tyres, you could just drive exactly the same as you had been before, because yes, in the pits the tyres may cool down a couple degrees Celsius and that, but that will not make a difference because the tyres will probably be around the 90 degrees Celsius range by the time you pitted. When it drops to about 85 and that, the performance in terms of grip is pretty much exactly the same, so you shouldn't have to worry about getting up to speed once you exit out the pits again. And I'll say another reason, actually, the third reason. Why I think you should pit lap 10 if you're not tyre changing it is because you want to be using people's slipstream to be saving tyres basically. Yes, they have very slightly dirty air. However, if you just ease off the steering on left-handers when behind people and you stay within even 6/10 of a second to the car ahead, you're going to be gaining a 10th or 2 in the last sector, and it'll help you get close towards the car in front into turn 1. And since you're not going to be too close to them, you can basically brake at basically where you would be in TT, obviously a touch earlier since you're being slipstream and carrying more speed, but you won't be compromised with a car ahead of you if they're consistent, and that way you can just ease the steering, save tyres, and have basically the same pace, but just have better tyres for a second stint, at least compared to the people that are also doing a no tyre swap, if there are any others, with you. So that way, if you're battling at the end with a person on the same strat as you with no tyre changing, you're very likely to have better tyres, and you'll be able to move ahead of them on the last laps, and hopefully, since you're tyre safe, you will be able to maintain the gap to the people that had changed the tyres, and when I say maintain, I mean they don't catch you up. Basically, as long as you don't lose over half a second in your second stint on an average lap, then I think you'll be able to stay ahead. Just as long as you're not getting penalties or making any major mistakes. So that's what I think the viable strat is for this race. For 90% of cars, I would recommend tyre changing probably, no matter what the pit loss is. Especially the WRX, as you see here on lap 10. Start of lap 10 I should say. I've got about 35 to 40% tyre wear already, and I have been tyre saving a bit too, so if I was to do the 20 laps without tyre changing, I would maybe have 5% of tyres left. However, yes, I may make up tyres, I'll be losing a second a lap in a second stint easily, just because when the WRX doesn't have much tyre wear left, it just understays a lot, because this car doesn't have the best handling. So it already doesn't have the best of handling with no tyre wear. Add on that a lot of tyre wear, it's just going to understay more, and it's going to just feel painful, you're more likely going to make mistakes, etc. So that's why I'm probably going to tyre change. Unless the actual race lobby has quite a lot lower degrees. And when I say quite a lot, I mean like 14 degrees Celsius and lower. We're talking here. But anyway, as you can see, I'm on lap 10. I'm going to pick this up because I am wanting to do the 10-10 strat, just because that is the optimum strat in terms of overall pace. If I was to be getting pole, etc., that's the strat I'd probably likely do. Unless I had someone directly behind me, then I'd think about pitting lap 11, trying to get them at the end of the race potentially. So I'd say even lap 8 you could pit, lap 12 you could pit. I'd say anywhere between lap 8 and lap 12 you can pit. I wouldn't pit any earlier than that, because if you pit in lap 7, I think you would struggle a bit on tyres, especially when battling people. Unless you're like in really big traffic and they're battling and all over the place and that's the only time I'd pit lap 7. If you're tyre changing, I wouldn't pit any earlier than lap 7, and I wouldn't pit any later than lap 12 personally, because if you were to pit after lap 12, you're going to lose the slipstream to the cars in front of you, and if they're in a slipstream train, you're not going to catch it back, so it's very unlikely you'll catch it back anyway. Even if you had better tyres at the end, you just won't make enough of a gap to make those fresh tyres like useful, if you understand what I'm trying to say. But anyway, as you can see, with my fuel, I've got well over 50%, so in fact I had over 60% I believe, so fuel is not a factor here at all, since it's not a very long race. Times 2 fuel can be an issue on some combos, which you may see later in the season. But here, since it's only 20 laps on a less than 1 minute 30 lap, even though this track has quite a few long straights, you're not driving long enough for the fuel to even be close to a factor here. Yes, the WRX is pretty good on fuel consumption, but it is not like 30% better on fuel consumption than any other car. You know what I mean? But anyway, now I'm going to talk about the corners I am planning to tie safe a bit on. So, like I mentioned, since it's an anti-clockwise circuit, the front right will be taking a beating. In MRs, it could be the rear right as well, especially in cars like the Audi R8 and the Lamborghini Huracan, since they wear out the rears quite a lot quicker than the front tyres. But anyway, where I'm planning to save is obviously I'm going to try and trail brake a bit more in the actual race compared to TT, just because I don't want to be putting too much braking input as I'm turning, since that means I am putting more load into the front tyre. I'm basically asking the front right tyre to do more braking and more turning at the same time, compared to what you should be doing is making the front right tyre turn a bit, but you also don't want the front right tyre to be braking really while turning, because you want to put as minimum load to the front right tyre as possible basically. But yeah, so basically what I'm going to be doing is turn 1, I'm going to be braking quite normally. I'm going to try and I might brake a couple meters earlier, just so that I can trail brake a bit earlier and put less load into the front right tyre. Again, I'm going to try not to put 100% steering in either, more like 80, probably like 70-60% turning input for turn 1. So you still, since it's quite a slow corner, you still need quite a bit of steering. As you just saw now in turn 1 actually, I had quite heavy steering lock even in this corner. However, when I put the throttle on, that's when you can get away with putting less steering in, since you can use that throttle to help rotate your car around the corner basically, especially in the WRX. Since this car likes to, since when you put this throttle down in this car, that's when it tends to steer. Some cars steer best when you're not really on the throttle, especially MRs I would say personally. Especially some MRs start to unsteer when you put the throttle down, like the Porsche for example. But anyway, so turn 1 I'm putting about 60% steering input in, turn 2 is a little left kink, turn 3, yeah, well, little left kink, you're barely turning for that anyway. Turn 3 I'm doing it as usual. Turn 4 I'm going to try maybe touch brake a touch earlier, just so if I can lift a bit earlier and coast more, just so that I'm not braking while turning, and I may be taking it slightly slower than I would be usually. All that would mean is just I would be braking later for the right hander after it, but since I won't be taking quite as much speed into that corner, I won't be putting as much strain, and I won't be having to put as much steering into that corner basically. So in TT I mentioned I was doing it around early 90 miles per hour, going over the left kink with the rumble strips. However, in the actual thing I'll be probably going around 87 miles per hour. That's what I'm going to be aiming to do. Right hander, the next right hander, since it's a right hander, don't have to worry, just do it as you usually would. Maybe obviously brake a touch later than you would be, since you're not going to be carrying quite as much speed from the previous corner. For the next right hander again, pretty similar. Again, just try not hold on to the brakes while turning, because again you don't want to be putting the load onto the front tyres by braking and turning at the same time basically. Little left kink again, just be a bit careful on steering, especially when you go over the right line, just so that you don't oversteer, especially in MR cars, since if you oversteer, since the rears wear faster, you're just more prone to oversteering at the end of the stints, and you don't really want that. That leads to the next left-hander, by far the biggest tyre killer on this track. Basically what I'm going to be doing for that corner is pretty much similar to what I actually do in TT. I'm probably going to brake at a very similar point, it's just I'm also going to probably delay the throttle a bit longer. So instead of going on the throttle as soon as I feel best grip, I'm probably going to wait until a tenth or two after that point, and then go on the power, and I'm also going to be putting about 20 to 30% steering in that corner. You can't really do much to tie safe on this track, but whatever you can do can make the difference, so in my opinion it is worth doing, even with not the biggest tyre there, especially as well if you're in slipstream. if you're struggling to get past people, you might as well just save tyres behind them instead of wasting time trying to battle them, trying to go from loops, etc. That leads to the next left-hander. I'm probably going to take it quite as normal. However, I'm going to just try open up the steering a bit earlier as I put the throttle down, and I'll maybe taking it a mile an hour slower as well, just to make sure I don't get a penalty for going too wide and not have too much oversteer on the exits. And that leads to the last hairpin. What I'm planning to do in the last hairpin is pretty much the same as TT. However, I'm probably going to turn slightly earlier and release the brakes earlier. Because again, in the last hairpin, if you hold the brakes for a bit too long, the car just won't turn. You need to really trail brake in the last hairpin here. So I'm either going to brake slightly earlier, especially if I'm in slipstream and having to go in 6th gear, then I'll probably have to brake quite a bit earlier since I'm going to be carrying a lot more speed than I would be in TT. Since I am staying in 5th, which is obviously so the top end than changing up to 6th. So I have to keep an eye on that. Just try not brake and turn because the car will just not steer, and you're putting more load into the front right tyre doing that as well. So that is where I am tyre saving, and that's basically all you need to know for this combo. So I'm probably going to leave my talking here. So there is 4.5 laps left of this footage. So before I go, I would say once again, huge thanks for the support recently. Like I said, already hit over 3k subs in I think around half a year, over 5 months anyway, which is absolutely insane support from you guys. I will be carrying on streaming these races. If you haven't saw the first 2 races, so I am planning to make like a recap stream once I've done all the races, just to go over each races I did, and my mindset and my how I felt each race went. So I'm not going to say anything about how I've done in the first 2 races so far, just in case you are wanting to watch it later and you've not had the time to watch them yet. And plus, like I said, I'm going to save that for a recap stream after the season has ended. But like I said, thanks for your support recently. I've been getting so many views in my streams recently, which is insane because all I'm really doing in streaming is I am basically what I'm doing, like I'm basically doing what I would be doing playing the game off stream, but instead I'm just doing it on stream, showing to you guys what how I'm driving, etc., and with a bit of commentary as well, with me talking. I do talk a lot, so I do apologise, but that's just how I am. I want to try and express my mindset, I express my mind, and I like to say what I think. That's just how I am as a person, and I want to share as much of my tips and tricks to you guys as possible to hopefully help you guys learn and get better at the game, or just to have more fun in general, basically. But like I said, that is where I'm going to leave it, guys. So I would appreciate a like and a sub if you enjoy these sort of videos and find them helpful. And yeah, I will be streaming this on Wednesday when this round comes. I'm going to carry on practicing with my race pace and time trial in between then when I've got the time. But yeah, I'll see you for Wednesday's stream. I don't think I'm going to be doing anything between now and this round, I believe, unless I really want to do the Daytona daily race that's coming, which is coming at the time of recording. When I've published this video, the daily will already be out, but I don't think I'll be doing it. I might even have to drop some DR because I'm easily in second split now, and in second split I've noticed some particular cars in split 2 and split 3, which worries me because yeah, I don't really want to go against them, to be honest. But anyway, like I said, I'm going to leave you guys now. I would appreciate like and sub, like I've already mentioned, if you enjoy these videos and find them helpful. If not, have a good rest of your day or evening or whatever, and the best of luck to you guys doing this race. And if you're not doing this race, then hopefully I will see you in my stream when I do these races on Wednesday. One very more quick thing, Mr. MCA gave me a shout out in his last manufacturer's guide video he did of the Gardens race, so I'm going to give a shout out to Mr. MCA as well. Thank you for shouting me out, mister, if you're watching this, and I saw your round 2 guide briefly, and your guide was very good as well, so I'll leave a link to his channel in my description. But without further ado, have a good rest of the week, have a good week, and I'll see you for Wednesday. Cheers guys, and enjoy the last 3 minutes of my driving. See you later, and goodbye.